We begin with NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell joining us in Paris, retired four-star General Barry McCaffrey, and journalist and best-selling historian Garrett Graff, author of the new book, When the Sea Came Alive, an oral history of D-Day. An extraordinary book that is, Garrett, but I welcome you all. And Kelly, you first. So like Reagan back then, Biden today stood atop a Nazi bunker facing a re-election and championing democracy and the importance of Western alliances.
And, Alex, he was certainly trying to tap into the deep reservoir of respect that Americans across the political spectrum have for our veterans and those who really extended the fight for democracy in deeply personal ways. The sacrifices were so deep and the cost of life was so enormous. And so by reminding Americans about that sacrifice, the bravery that was involved, and at the same time, the ordinariness of American young men from all across the country serving in that way, and to try to use that example to say that there is a renewed call for standing up for democracy. It's not in the same way. It's not with a heated conflict quite like World War II, but there are, of course, new concerns, new threats, and new potential for democracy to be challenged. So he's trying to make that very personal today, to tap into that sense of respect and heroism, and to have Americans today feel a sense that they, too, have a duty to stand up for the values that the country is about. So that's really the mission of today's speech, in addition to commemorating the 80th anniversary yesterday and through all the events here. Also today, the president put that in very contemporary terms by sitting down with Ukrainian President Zelensky and talking about what he commits to, an enduring support for their fight to stop Russia. Here's part of what the president had to say.
The United States is standing with you. You are the bulwark against the aggression that's taking place. We have an obligation to be there. We're still in completely, thoroughly.
The president also said to President Zelensky that he was sorry that it had taken so long, months going by, before Congress had approved additional aid. And so he was trying to reinforce that he and his administration are in step with Ukraine and wanting to help defend their country under the assault from Russia, and promising more commitment going forward, even with that being very difficult in terms of the election season. Alex?
Indeed, Kelly. Okay, and the president will be traveling to Paris later, and I'm sure you'll be greeting him there as well and covering all that for us. Thank you, Kelly. Meantime, General McCaffrey, let's bring you into the conversation. As President Biden, he's standing where President Reagan stood, and it reminds us when Republicans were among the biggest NATO supporters, not its critics, and keeping these alliances are crucial now to Ukraine, right?
Well, there's no question. And by the way, that point-to-hawk presentation by President Biden was absolutely magnificent. It echoes the tone of President Reagan 40 years ago. That's become almost symbolic of World War II. Over 400,000 Americans killed in action. That day, of course, over 4,000 killed, many of them on Omaha Beach, and the 2nd Ranger Battalion climbing the heights. But having Zelensky there was a real opportunity to remind people that's Ukraine's the second biggest country in Europe. Its sovereignty, its ability to survive onslaught by Putin and this criminal invasion puts in jeopardy all of the NATO, European Union countries. What's next? Is it the Baltic nations? Is it Poland? Is it, France itself? So it was, I think, well done by President Biden to remind Americans that our security is part and parcel of the security of Europe, the second biggest economic power on the face of the earth.
Indeed. And Garrett, you start your book with the U.S. and Britain learning how to be allies. And you have President Biden and Zelensky, they're figuring that out now, especially when it comes to how U.S. weapons are used. Do you see parallels?
Absolutely. And I think more than that, we have never had a significant anniversary of D-Day where democracy and Western democracy felt as under threat and as fraught as it does this year, both in Europe and at home. And I think that was one of President Biden's messages that, this is This is as much a fight here domestically as it is internationally. But Ronald Reagan, that great mythologizer of D-Day and the Rangers at Pointe du Hoc, he said in one of his speeches, democracy is never more than one generation away from extinction. And I think, what makes this 80th anniversary feel so poignant is that we are marking the final passing of the greatest generation, the generation that secured Western democracy and freedom in that Second World War and then during the Cold War. And now, our very real question in American politics right now is, what are we going to do with that legacy? And are we as willing now to fight for democracy as we were then?
And it's incredible because your book, you will talk with, about 700 civilians and members there. You present an oral history. But, General, your father fought in World War II's Italian theater, an oral history to you. Describe the symbolic importance of the boys of Pointe du Hoc and the effect that their triumph had across Europe.
Yeah, well, that's a 2nd Ranger Battalion, a couple hundred soldiers climbing straight up a cliff, Germans firing automatic weapons down on them, dropping hand grenades on them. And they made it. Just astonishing, courageous performance, and then held off German counterattack. So I think it's become, as you really say, symbolic of the commitment of the armed forces during World War II, which saved mankind. Today's civilization, that was what was at stake. And, my parents' generation, my dad fought with the famous 92nd Infantry Division in Italy. He had 8 years in combat in World War II, Korea, Vietnam. All my uncles, one was in the Navy, a cruiser that was attacked by a Japanese submarine, Army Air Corps. So that 16 million American men and women came to the defense of the country with an enormous economic powerhouse that really helped win the war. We've got to keep that in mind, facing the new challenges.